to study the nucleophilic substitution reactions in the case of ethers. So I'm talking about the reactions involving the breaking of the CO bond in the case of ethers. We're going to keep this flow chart of ours handy. And as I always give you the hint, take this flow chart, keep it on the side of your notebook so that you can refer to it as we study the topic. Those who are feeling confused where we are, yes, you are on the channel Pen and Paper Chemistry, where we deal with the topics related to grade 11 and 12 for chemistry. The topic that is going on in this set of videos is ethers, haloalkanes, haloarenes, alkanes, alkenes, alkynes. Everything has been covered thoroughly on the channel. In fact, even phenols and alcohols, their physical, chemical properties, everything on the channel. Only thing required from your end is a pen and a paper to write down what you are going to learn. Nucleophilic substitution. As I mentioned to you earlier, in the case of ethers, because our alkyl group is electron releasing and our oxygen already has lone pair of electrons, it becomes a little difficult to break this bond and to convince the alkoxy group to leave so that another group can come and replace it. And what are those groups? Definitely this nucleophile has to be a strong nucleophile. Now if you remember, when we did the alcohols and the haloalkanes, we realized that the halides ions were good nucleophiles, and out of that as well, iodide was the strongest one, followed by bromide, chloride and fluoride in their nucleophilic characteristics. And that is exactly what we observe in the case of ethers. Ethers can be replaced by the iodide ion when we react them with concentrated HI. So what will happen over here? There will be a breaking of the bond either here or it can be here. Remains to be seen where it is going to be. So if it breaks from the first end, I'll have Ri plus R dash OH, or I can have ROH and R dash I. As I've written already, the product depends on the nature of the alkyl groups that are present surrounding the ethereal oxygen. Let's see our observation. So supposing I take the ether CH3OC2H5 plus concentrated HI. What we observe is we get CH3I. In other words, the bonding is like this. Iodide is preferring to attack the methyl group and I have C2H5OH. Interestingly, if our HI is in excess, even the ethanol can undergo further nucleophilic substitution reaction and we will have C2H5I plus water as the product. Let's see the next one. Here now I have got a secondary ether. So secondary alkyl group over here. So CH3O, see, there's a CH and two alkyl groups attached. Now again we notice that the iodide goes and attacks the smaller alkyl group. So I will have CH3I and this along with the hydrogen. So how are you breaking it down as H and I? This is how it is breaking down. Here it broke down like this, I and H here. Let's see the third one now. Now on the ethereal oxygen I have a tertiary alkyl group. Going by what we saw earlier, it should be I and H. But have I got that product? No, look at what I've got. I've got a tertiary alkyl halide and a primary alcohol. Look at the products carefully. They're very different from what we have formed earlier. In other words, no, this is not how it's going to be. It's the other way around. They swap places. So I have here, and I know it is not breaking down also from here. So where is it breaking down is actually here and giving me a halogen and an H. That's quite different from what we have observed earlier. How do we explain these observations? As I always say in chemistry, by giving the different fundamentals, we are observing, and based on our observations, we are making inferences. It's not that we tell the reagent to undergo this reaction. We observe what happens under different conditions and then we analyze. Now, in order to explain the observations, we notice that if we have smaller alkyl groups, so primary or secondary, you can see over here, when we had primary or secondary alkyl groups, we had the smaller alkyl group giving us the haloalkane, and that is what we have written over here. So smaller alkyl groups, primary or secondary, in other words, they undergo the SN2 reaction mechanism. If you have a bigger alkyl group, in other words, your R or R dash is a tertiary alkyl group, the mechanism followed is an SN1 reaction mechanism. So we are going to take it up one at a time. So first of all, when we are talking about the SN2 reaction mechanism, when we started ethers, that time itself, I mentioned that this OR is not a good leaving group. In order to cause it to leave, we have to offload these lone pair of electrons on the oxygen. We need to entice it. And how do we offload it? Yes, of course, by what we call as the protonation of the ether, which is brought about by concentrated HI. Now, we did this reaction first when we spoke about the reactions of ethereal oxygen. So, protonation, what does it give you? Yes, it is called as protonated ether, right? And this protonated ether is an oxonium ion, right? Protonated ether, where our O carries a positive charge, that means it forms an oxonium ion. Now I says, how can I be left outside the bracket? You can't do this injustice to me. So what it does is it tries to enter into the ring. How do we do that? It says, I can try and go and attack from this side, or I can try and attack from this side. Now from your experience so far, if this soldier has to attack this particular group, do you think it will prefer from the less guarded side or the more guarded side? Remember, it can attack the carbon. Yes, attached to the oxygen. Yes, of course, the less guarded side where it experiences less steric hindrance. So, what does it do? It will form a temporary bond with the methyl. It says, methyl, come, I can help you out, and we have an intermediate state where I've got the iodide ion and the hydrogen attached. Now, do you think this will be very stable? This is an intermediate. Do you think it will be very stable? No, right? It's too heavy a molecule. So what will happen? Methyl says, okay, boss, you stay with the CH2, CH3 group. I will go away with the iodide. With the result, we have the product being formed as iodomethane and CH3. Start from here, CH3, CH2, OH. It's an SN2 mechanism. This is a slow step. That means our rate of reaction is dependent on the ether as well as the iodide ion. In other words, the nucleophile as well as the substrate. Correct? Now, if supposing I say that the iodide ion attacks this carbon atom, so you must be wondering, why didn't we put it like this? CH2, CH3, and there's a hydrogen. If the iodide ion tries to attack from here, look at the amount of guards that are there close to this carbon. Remember, the hydrogens are also there. They are guarding it. There is the methyl group. So with the result, the second possibility is very minimal. Hence, our major product over here is the smaller alkyl group forming the haloalkane and the bigger alkyl group forming the alcohol. Right? Have you noted it down? So this is what mechanism? This is SN2 mechanism. For those who are not very conversant with the concept of SN2 reaction mechanism, there are videos dealing with reaction mechanisms in organic chemistry. Separate set of videos. Please go through that. Step by step, and your concept will be very, very clear. Now, if our HI is in excess, what will happen is this alcohol will further undergo the reaction with hydrogen iodide forming CH3, CH2I plus water. And that explains why we wrote the reaction in 2 steps over here. Now let us see what happens when you have a bigger alkyl group. That means one of your alkyl groups is a tertiary alkyl group. Here the reaction mechanism that happens is an SN1 reaction mechanism. Substitution, nucleophilic, unimolecular. It's a first order reaction and we are going to write the mechanism steps. Now of course, if you see both the reaction mechanisms, the first step is the protonation of the ether, right? Because we need to tempt the oxygen to offload itself. Don't be under so much stress. So what do? We form a protonated ether, and again iodide ion is left waiting outside for its turn to enter into the inner circle of this ether. Give me some space, accommodate me, help me. Hello, I want to be a part of this group. So what does it do? Here again it will try to attack either from the alkyl side, the smaller alkyl group, or this side. Now this is even more heavily guarded. Also, remember the shape of ethers? It's a V shape, right? Now V shape means my oxygen here, then I have CH2, CH3, and then I have the alkyl, the tertiary alkyl group. Oh my God. So that means this bigger alkyl group won't even allow the iodide to attack from this side because there is so much of steric hindrance happening here. So the only option left for iodide to do is to stand waiting outside so that there is some offloading in the oxonium ion which has been formed because of protonation. Now, how does that offloading happen? The tertiary alkyl groups here, they will tell C2H5, okay, we allow you to leave with the oxygen and we are happy to leave the electrons with the oxygen. So what do I have? The first product here is C2H5OH. Now, the kind tertiary alkyl group. You must be wondering why this alkyl group would want to donate the electrons of the bond pair towards the oxygen. Remember, our alkyl groups are electron releasing. They are supporting carbon. They are saying, yes, yes, go ahead. We are there with you. We are going to share that load with you. So that means now this carbon is positively charged. Correct? Now this carbon is positively charged. It's got a vacant space. And what do we have? The iodide ion makes use of this opportunity and tells the carbocation, boss, I can help you. I have extra electrons. And the tertiary alkyl group is also happy. Correct? So here, this becomes the slow step. I have the final product C2H5OH plus the tertiary alkyl halide CH3, CH3 and I. You will also notice that I have changed the signs over here. It's not an arrow, it's an equilibrium process. I did not want to complicate the things in one go. Now here what is happening is both the processes are taking place simultaneously. So that is why, so basically they are in equilibrium. That is why we say that the rate of the reaction here is proportional to the concentration of the substrate, that is our ether, and the nucleophile. Hence an SN2 reaction. Whereas in the second mechanism, the SN1 mechanism, the rate is dependent only on the substrate, that is only on the ether. That is why it is an SN1 reaction mechanism. So look carefully, SN2 reaction mechanism, SN1 reaction mechanism. I hope you have been writing along with me. You notice the difference in the products which have been formed. This explains the observations that we made. So here, how did we do it is, we did I and then H. Whereas for the presence of the tertiary alkyl groups, how was it? The H here and the I here. I goes with the bigger alkyl group and the H goes to the smaller alkoxy group. In case you've missed out on writing any of the points, pen and paper, chemistry, Google site. That is where I am going to upload all these notes so that you can refer to them quickly. It's not a .com site, it's a Google site. When you search on Google, it will lead you to both the YouTube channel and the Google site. Earlier it was called as Learning Chemistry is Fun. Tell me, is it fun or not? Now that we've done the behavior of ethers and why they show reactions like this, my question to you is, if I have an aromatic ether, so I've got C6H5, let's say OCH3 or OC2H5, this is an alkyl group, and I reacted with concentrated HI. Which of these will be the product? Will I get an iodobenzene, or will I get phenol as our major product? Where will my compound break from? So nucleophilic substitution will happen like this, or will it happen like this? Tell me. Think logically. If you know the mechanisms, you will be able to answer. If you have followed the concept of nucleophilic substitution and electrophilic substitution, nucleophilic substitution, very, very important. A large number of organic compounds are showing nucleophilic substitution reactions. So tell me, which is the product going to be? Think. Pause the video. Think for yourself. Apply logic. Do you think, I'll give you a hint over here, do you think that this oxygen is happy to move out of benzene? Is it easy for this? Remember, it has lone pairs with it shares with the benzene ring. We did something like this in phenol. Canonical structures. Yes, you're quite close. Thought about it? Okay. So the correct product is our second one. Why? As I gave you the hint, in the case of the presence of oxygen over here, the lone pair of electrons are shared with the benzene ring. It undergoes resonance. So when it is undergoing a resonance, it will have a partial double bond character, and it will be difficult to break this double bond. So where will the substitution happen? It will happen over here. So I will have I here and an H here, giving me the second set of products. The first set does not happen. Also, you will be able to correlate with the fact that aromatic compounds do not undergo nucleophilic substitution on the benzene ring very easily. They do not undergo nucleophilic substitution easily. They may require extreme conditions to bring about that change. What about the other nucleophilic substitution reactions? Yes, the ethers do undergo reaction with PCl5. Now for that, I will take you back to the topic of alcohol, C2H5OH plus PCl5. We have done this reaction in alcohols. I would like you to recall what you did or refer to the flow chart for alcohols if you cannot recall, and try writing the products of this reaction. Similarly, for the second one, that means reaction of ethers with acetyl chloride or ethanoyl chloride. Yes, this is acetyl chloride according to the common system of nomenclature, or this is ethanoyl chloride according to the IUPAC system of nomenclature. IUPAC system of nomenclature has been thoroughly covered on the channel under a set of 4 videos. Ethanol plus CH3COCl. Yes, of course, this is known as acylation reaction. Takes place in the presence of a base. What do we get? Complete these 2 reactions. I would want you to be prepared with your answer when we do the next set of reactions or properties of ethers, that is electrophilic substitution reactions, especially taking place in the case of aromatic ethers. So stay connected and make sure that you keep writing and revising.